Guys, welcome back. Now looking at page 4 of the purchase agreement, paragraph 25. This is a simple one. In addition to the seller's disclosure statement, lead-based paint disclosure, the agency relationship disclosure, there are the following checked items that are also made part of the purchase agreement. And this is just making it simple because what I'm going to say is these are kind of the 10 most common. And there may be something out of the ordinary, and this blank is fillable, but typically these are the ones that you may be adding as an addendum to the purchase agreement. By checking these, we're making sure that all parties to the transaction, that the closing agent, title company, knows there are these addendums. And by the way, most importantly, the mortgage company, if there is a mortgage company involved, they need to know, and nothing should be hidden. If anybody has signed an addendum between the buyer and the seller, if they've signed an addendum, mortgage company, title company should know. If they don't have that, you may be putting your buyers and sellers into positions where they're committing fraud, which is a federal offense. Yes, be concerned. Be very concerned. Anyway, flood insurance. It addresses the aspect of flood insurance. There's lots of places for them to be able to go out. It says we're not experts at this, but regardless of where we're at within our company, there are areas where flood insurance would be required. And by the way, let's find out up front, because flood insurance becomes very, very expensive. It may disqualify a buyer from being able to actually afford a home. And that's essentially what this whole thing is directed at. Well and septic. So this is kind of a disclosure. And frankly, guys, it's one where it's a heads up for you to check and find out whether or not you're in a municipality. Because, look, we've listed counties, but it's municipalities, and I'll give you a great example. In here we have Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, Washtenaw, Isabella, Ingham, and Shiawassee are known counties to require well and septic. Well, Oakland County does not require it, but there are municipalities within Oakland County that if a home is on well or septic, that they may require an inspection be done at the time of sale or transfer of the deed. Key is just know that these counties are known for that. I can tell you at the time of this recording, I believe it is West Bloomfield and Farmington Hills. Why? Look, water and sewer is widespread. Most municipalities would prefer that you are on and connected to, but it wasn't required. So homes have been grandfathered. The inspection is to make sure that the well and septic is still functioning correctly and not of any imminent danger to surrounding neighborhoods or areas. 28, guys, this is an important one for us. The property inspection, and we've even added due diligence contingency. We wanted to make sure that all parties to this transaction understand that it's not just a property inspection. Rather, this is a time period for me to go out and check all that I want to check as a homeowner without any ties as to what that might be. So here's what it says. Inspections required by FHA, VA, lenders, or municipalities are not made for, nor should they be relied upon by the buyers. See, those parts are not made necessarily to protect you. Those inspections are not full, thorough, or complete inspections. So we want to make sure that the buyers understand that. Brokers recommend that buyers conduct independent private inspections of the property at the buyer's expense. Due diligence. Oh, you know what? By the way, what I want you to catch, guys, conduct independent private inspections. Does it say anything about a certified inspector or a licensed contractor? It does not. So what we're saying is conduct your own independent inspection. What's best? A certified inspector. Goes on, due diligence. It's funny when I turn around. Okay, here we go. Due diligence may include, but is not limited to. Important that we catch this. It could be anything. Due diligence is not limited to any inspections or research deemed necessary by the buyers. It could be structural integrity, condition of mechanical systems, environmental status, health or safety conditions, surveys, or infestation. We even bring them a warning to ensure intended use of the premises recommended by that the buyers research the square footage, building and use restrictions, easements, ordinances, regulations, school district, property taxes. Even the property taxes, you know, it's funny because I had one agent who came to me very, very concerned and said, Darwin, I just had somebody who wrote an offer on a property and they found out what the taxes are going to be, potentially, what the taxes will be. And it was a double. It was a large amount, was what it was potentially going to go up to, and I would say in this case, likely to go up to. The buyer said, I can't do it. I can't afford that, and wanted to walk away. Well, the bottom line was simply this: due diligence contingency. In their due diligence, they found what the taxes would be and said, hey, I don't want to deal with that anymore. If buyers do not notify the sellers in writing, so guys, this is the key part for us now. We need to make sure that we're on top of the time. When does it have to be delivered that we are dissatisfied? Because I'll read this now. If the buyer does not notify the sellers in writing within blank calendar days from the date of final acceptance of the agreement that the buyer is dissatisfied with the results of their due diligence, the agreement shall be binding. And I want you to catch that again. If the buyer does not, then the agreement shall be binding without regard to the inspections. Otherwise, if you don't say I'm dissatisfied within, if you put 10 days, and by the way, that's common maximum. That's the common maximum amount of time is 10 days. If you don't, or your buyer does not respond in writing within those 10 days, they're deemed to have removed their contingency for the inspection and due diligence time period. Otherwise, we're moving forward. That contingency is now removed, and it is binding. From there, it goes on with what are our options. If the buyer notifies sellers in writing and within specified time that in the buyer's sole judgment, the buyer is dissatisfied with the results of the due diligence, buyer shall do one or a combination of the following within the contingency period stated above. So if we did use 10 days in here, and within 10 days we say, hey, we're dissatisfied, then the purchase agreement says, here's our 4 options. These are simply 4 options. First one, present to the sellers an amendment for mutual agreement that cites a list of repairs and or conditions to be remedied. A says, hey, seller, we found these things. GFI in the kitchen. Please replace it. That would be A. Something of that nature. B, they could present to sellers an amendment for mutual agreement with a credit that is applied against the purchase price and or a price reduction in full satisfaction of the inspection contingency. Now, guys, here's what I want you to understand about B. I do an addendum, it needs to be delivered to the lender. Lenders don't like option A. That's probably going to require that an appraiser go back out. It's probably going to cost the buyer a couple dollars, I should say a couple hundred, to simply go out and make sure that that $30 socket has been replaced. It's not always the best idea, but know this, because I'd have to do an addendum to state that it's done, and that if you do it, we'll remove our contingency. B says, give me a credit. Needs to be done on an addendum. What's the benefit? It's just a credit. And we say that purchase price is going to be, let's say we were $235. They found a few items. They agreed to make an adjustment of $1,000. It's now $234. Purchase agreement, or excuse me, the addendum to the purchase agreement would simply state purchase price to be $234,000. Purchaser removes their contingency as per paragraph 28. And it's done. Nothing else need to be happening. So here's what I want you to caution. And this goes with any addendum, but especially with the property inspection or the due diligence. I don't need to go on January 21st with the temperature at 36 degrees, sunny. There was 6.5 inches of snow on the ground, wind blowing out of the northwest at 34 miles per hour. We don't need all that. All we need is, how are you changing the purchase agreement? How are you amending, or what are you adding? Keep it simple, and this is where I'll give you the KISS principle. Many of you have heard it. Keep it simple, salesperson. Keep it simple, salesperson. Use the clause library that I believe is part of almost all forms completion applications, such as Remind Docs, Transaction Desk are the two primary. Here's C. Present to the sellers a notice of dissatisfaction with the due diligence which shall render the agreement null and void, in which case seller agrees to authorize broker to return all earnest money to the buyers. We're out. See ya. Sign this. Give me my earnest money deposit. Okay? That's the agreement. But guys, just know we still need a mutual release. Why? We need to confirm that there is no dispute over the earnest money deposit. Yes, this says it will be returned. But if somebody's disputing it, we cannot release it. If there is no dispute, we cannot hold it. How do we know that there's no dispute? Mutual release. Last one. Let me kind of set this up. Buyer does their due diligence, says, hey, seller, we found these things, we want you to do it. No, we won't do it. Okay, well, give us a credit. Nope, don't want to do that either. Buyer still wants to buy the house, even though the seller won't do anything. Here's what D says. In the event that the buyers and the sellers are unable to reach an agreement to the buyer's proposals made under A or B, buyer shall either elect to proceed with the transaction by waiving the contingency in writing, or declare void by election of C within 3 calendar days of receipt of the seller's responses to A or B. So here's what I want you to know. A seller can't cancel the contract simply because you made a proposal to change the terms that you've already agreed to. Because here's where that would happen. Although our purchase agreement doesn't allow for it, what if they had an offer backing up ours? They would love for us to walk away because they might net more money. Just because you make a proposal doesn't kill the contract, okay? The buyer is in control, and it would be the buyer who's deciding to walk away, but the seller cannot. I love paragraph 28. Guys, so just make sure that you understand that fully, that there are those 4 options. Make sure you understand them completely, that you could deliver these to a buyer, because they need to know their options. And of course, by the way, the obvious part is, almost always, they're saying, yes, we want to do an inspection. Don't make a mistake and leave this one, or put the initials into the does not. We want them on the does, almost all of the time. Liability for damage. So this is kind of a heads up, that the buyer is solely responsible for any and all damages that are from a result of the inspection. Guys, we need to be at the inspections. We need to kind of supervise the inspectors are going through. We need to make sure that they're not causing any additional damage, they're not leaving things dirty, that they clean things up if anything did get dirtied. It's just covering it, I guess, is a simple way of being able to put it. Municipal inspections. If a municipal inspection and or certification of the premises are required by local ordinance, state or federal law, seller agrees to pay for those inspections. So if a municipality is doing this, they're agreeing to pay for it. Seller agrees to complete any and all repairs required by a municipality, provided repairs do not exceed blank dollars. Guys, I can't really tell you what to put in there, but you do need to know the municipalities that will require those. And there's quite a few when you get down to it. If you're on the south side of Detroit, Metro Detroit, Westland, and Garden City, absolutely every residential sale that has to happen. If you've got a, what do I want to call it, non-owner occupied rented property, rented residential property, Pontiac and Waterford are 2 areas that will require inspections because they are rental properties. So you just need to know what those are. Repairs could end up, but the seller's agreeing to it. You're going to put in what you believe those amounts might be. Sometimes it's going to be minor, other times it could be $500, but if you're in the seller's shoes, what might you agree to? What would you not agree to? And that's what that's covering. 31, buyer acceptance of the property is as-is condition. So everybody always likes to say as is. It's in the PA. By closing this transaction, buyer shall be deemed to have accepted the property in as-is condition, and it shall be deemed by closing this transaction that buyer is satisfied with the condition of the property. You close, congratulations, it's yours. Time for legal action, it's simply addressing in advance, here's how much time that either party has to go after any other party involved in it. It is the time provided by law, or 6 months after the closing, or be forever barred. You can't come in after that. This is one that I want you to definitely catch. Showings. This is important. The MLSs have now created a ABO, I believe is what most of our MLSs are calling it. ABO being accepting backup offers. Our purchase agreement is written, will not allow that. Here's what it says, one single line. Seller agrees that the property will be marked pending. It will be marked pending, and no further showings will be allowed. One single simple line. So that's what our purchase agreement says, and if a seller does not counter it, then once we have acceptance, what should we see in the MLS? Pending. And then there are no other showings and no other offers will be accepted. This coordinates along with our listing agreement, by the way. Now, FIRPTA. We learned about it in pre-license training. Did we really understand it? I'm going to guess probably not. It's relatively new, but what I would tell you is something important out of this. FIRPTA, short for Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act. Property to this transaction acknowledge that they are bound by the requirements of FIRPTA and that the required addendum or affidavit shall be prepared and executed to determine the amount required to be withheld from a foreign seller's proceeds, if any. So on the listing agreement, it has a very specific box for you to check. Sellers are or are not United States citizens. Guys, we have to ask for this reason. This is the heads up. And you would rather that your foreign non-citizen know in advance that a portion of their proceeds are going to be held because of FIRPTA. Now, it doesn't always happen, but we've recently had it at the time of this recording, just a few weeks earlier, where somebody just assumed that they were a United States citizen. They get to the closing table, the closing officer says, by the way, you are a legal United States citizen? They said, well, I am a legal, what's the term? Resident alien. I am a legal resident alien. Well, that's the same as not a United States citizen. FIRPTA. And all of a sudden they had to figure out and calculate what would be withheld from their proceeds. Not happening. What if that person was going out to buy another home using those proceeds? So guys, don't whiz by finding out whether or not they're a United States citizen. This has nothing to do with discrimination of any sort. It is simply, are you a citizen of the United States? Why? FIRPTA. All right? So guys, with that, we've now covered page 4. We're getting close. Let's take a break. We'll come back.